we need to address the latest controversy, or whatever you want to call it, Osha and Qimir having a romantic subtext. And this isn't just something the fandom made up. It's not just the latest ship, as people like to call it these days. This is explicitly stated by the showrunner of The Acolyte herself. Ever since I think it was the 4th episode, they've been doing this thing whereby Leslye Headland, right after the episode drops, breaks down various aspects of it. Sometimes this is insightful, but unfortunately for some, it's been very spoilery, and fan dissent has been noticeable online. But the Osha Qimir thing is a strange one, because in case you don't know, Leslye took the idea from Obi-Wan in A New Hope, the line he speaks to Luke about Vader being seduced by the dark side of the Force. Headland seems to have taken it very literally, the dark side being literally seducing, an allure that is more than just an alternative path within the Force. And to my estimation, it's not doing justice to the portrayal of the Sith. Don't get me wrong, passions amongst dark side users are certainly a documented phenomenon, and this is seen amongst Sith and even Inquisitors. But the awkward, sudden, unexpected way they leaned into this dynamic after Osha sees Qimir sans clothes, and then simply because he offers her a different path, it just seemed out of the blue. And even though Sol survived, this guy just killed so many of her friends. I know Osha has had dark side tendencies, but the way she falls for this guy is like a teen drama. And I've got to say, I've been loving the memes that have come from this episode. Chef's kiss. And hadn't Leslye spoken about it 2 days before episode 6 dropped, it was not something you'd expect, given the narrative direction up until that point, and with just a couple of episodes left. And I was pretty convinced, up until Jecky's death, based on things Daphne Keane said, that a relationship between Osha and Jecky was being teased and set up. But now following Jecky's death, I suppose not. Osha is into Qimir. And we now understand the reason why the series hired an intimacy coordinator. Here is the context of what Leslye said in a brand new conversation with Collider.com. They say the Acolyte has finished what Rian Johnson started with The Last Jedi 7 years ago, by delivering some long overdue enemies to lovers vibes via the tantalizing dynamic between Osha and Qimir. And it seems, my dear friends, Leslye confirms connections to Kylo Ren and Rey, that being an influence on the dynamic of the power of two. A Force dyad. Here's the quote. I wanted to just click into the kind of stuff I wrote when I was in high school. I love these characters. Nobody wants to ship these characters more than I do. I love them so much. I love the stranger. There's always a character that's an avatar for me that I really, really love. Then Osha's inner conflict fits with his ideology, and yet they're on opposite sides of the spectrum, just like she and her sister started at the beginning of the show. I wanted to stay true to my characters. I tried my best to stick to the tropes and the stuff that I loved, and tried not to think about, especially with the classics. And even though she's kind of leaving things ambiguous, talking about it just being Sith ideology, Osha being entranced and enchanted by the dark side, anger, fear, loss, Leslye does accept the ship. Collider say, there are 2 right now, Oshmir and then Oshamir. What's your take on that? And Headland says, I like Oshamir personally. So, no denial of this, and as I said on Tuesday, she did kind of accept the fact this was inspired by Kylo and Rey. There was just one moment that was sort of the seed that planted the tree of this relationship. It was just Adam Driver's delivery when he says, join me, please, in this incredibly vulnerable, almost heartbreaking way, where you understand how lonely and lost this guy is, because he murdered his dad. But it was specifically him standing in front of her and showing himself in such a vulnerable place. And of course that was the scene where Rey says, don't do this, man. Kylo was hoping in that moment Rey was going to join him. And also a similarity of Kylo and Qimir being very different kind of dark side Force users to traditional Sith. Something I noticed, both wanting to let go of their pasts, based on pain. Kylo gets frustrated when Rey says, don't do this, and he says, no, you're still holding on, let go, in line with his philosophy of letting the past die. In the moment, similar to Qimir, Kylo is offering Rey a choice, a different route. Just like Osha, Rey held on to a lot of her past. With Osha it was the Witch Coven, what took place on Brendok, and with Rey, it's her parents, wanting to find belonging. And so here comes a very different kind of Force user offering her a different belonging through manipulation, although, as you're going to see, Leslye Headland doesn't consider it that. He wanted to end the Jedi and the Sith, and instead wanted something new, a union of two, even though in the moment he didn't know they were a false dyad. That's what Leslye is saying inspired Qimir and his relationship to Osha, who is admittedly a lot calmer than Ben, but is also all about letting go. Qimir is a former Padawan. He has pain, he has anger, and uses it to fuel his new philosophy and ideology. But Rey knew there was still good in Ben. I do wonder how that plays into the way Osha and Kymir's relationship is going to play out. I suspect it's inversed. Now that Osha has put the helmet on, I think there's no going back. Leslye wanted to evoke a Vader in Revenge of the Sith moment. This transformation, where there is quiet, and all we hear are deep breaths, in this case the Cortosis mask. Leslye says Osha never tried to turn him, and she admits she never liked the "there's still good in you" thing, so I think she's trying to twist it and say there's bad in you, almost breaking a Star Wars taboo that turning to the dark side has a morally negative connotation. I think it makes sense from the perspective of a Sith, but if we're talking about classic George Lucas storytelling, the mythologies and stories he was trying to impart, he never wanted fans to come away with the idea that the dark side was alluring, or even good. And so, for Leslye Headland, it's a spin on that, trying to prove redeeming qualities in turning to the dark. She finishes with this: Osha is extremely in denial about her own anger at the Jedi, and her father figure's soul. She's in extreme denial because she feels like she's not allowed to be angry. And this is interesting, she's in an enormous amount of pain over her sister and their history, and she also feels like she's not allowed to feel that. It's almost as if she's repressed it, and I do believe that's going to come out in the next 2 episodes. It's all coming to a boiling point. So someone coming in this case Qimir, and saying, actually, feeling those things is not only okay, but is a restoration for your spiritual foundation, is almost an epiphany, and too much to take for Osha. But Leslye doesn't see this as manipulation. This is the path Osha is going down. And I'm going to say this right now, my dear friends, I just don't think this series is going to have a satisfying conclusion. I don't think they're killing off the Sith. I think Sol is going to die, maybe Venestra, but in terms of Qimir and Osha, I think they live, and they're going to form a new rule of 2. And so in terms of this series wrapping up in a way we expect, I don't think so. More seasons to come, I think. She also wants fans to know the Kylo Ren theme, which we did speak about in depth after episode 5, is still worth noting going into the final 2 episodes. What do you guys think about all these revelations? All the reveals in today's video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Very important. Help us grow this community. And I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.